And I know we've got people sort of joining us in the interest of this breaking news and social media. 22 counts dealing with Congresswoman Brown on a 24-count indictment. 22 of them she's been found guilty of. 4 of them the jury found her not guilty. And the not guilty for were specific instances of wire or mail fraud, the specific dates. But on the big charges, was she involved in a criminal conspiracy? Did she engage in a scheme to defraud the government? Did she falsify tax returns? The jury returned a guilty verdict on those very sort of big overarching umbrella charges that dealt with the big question of, was Corrine Brown involved in a fraudulent scheme?
You know, our guest in the studio has been talking about the conviction rate of public corruption here in the federal jurisdiction, and it's extremely high. I've had the opportunity to talk with a former federal prosecutor, and one of the reasons for that is that usually the case is tried within the Justice Department before the indictment is even handed down. So it seems like this was somewhat inevitable.
Well, you know, a jury is somewhat inevitable, right? And so we don't know who's going to be actually seeing, you know, listening to the testimony and seeing the evidence. What we do know is that before the Justice Department comes after a member of Congress or someone who's been voted on in a public election, they vet that case at one of the highest levels involved in government. And so that happens through the very secret grand jury process. And we understand that even internally within the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Jacksonville, that they did some additional vetting to really make sure they had covered all of the bases in this case. And certainly there was over 80,000 public documents, records involved in this case, tons and tons and tons of records and weeks of testimony. And for folks who don't follow court, I mean, that is expansive. I mean, it's a bigger and more than certainly your average or even a big case. I mean, it was a tremendous undertaking for this jury.
All right, Clark, I'm going to toss it back to Jeannie in the studio again. 18 counts. Guilty, 4 counts, not guilty. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Ken. We have some new information now from Ann Schindler, who is inside the courtroom, and then now inside the courthouse. She just sent this out on her Twitter account. Corrine leaves courtroom quickly, without stopping. Mood in 10th floor hallway. Funeral. So you can see that must be quite the reaction, as you would expect. She's had a lot of supporters up there. And Eric Roper is back with us now. He's been practicing law for numerous decades now, on both sides, both the defense and the prosecution. And we just heard the one woman that Ken interviewed say she had tears in her eyes, but she mentioned the word appeal. So on what grounds could you appeal this case?
Well, any error that was committed at the trial level is appealable. Now, that does not mean that the appeal is necessarily going to be successful, of course. On appeal, there's a very deferential standard of review given to the trial court. The trial judge is the one that was in the best position to hear the evidence, assess the credibility of the witnesses, and make rulings on the admissibility of evidence. One potential issue that we identified yesterday is that excusal of the juror that happened yesterday morning. That could, almost certainly, that will be one of the bases for appeal.
And all we really know is that he was supposedly talking about higher beings.
Right.
What could be wrong with that? How could that be an error?
Well, the defense objected to it, so they preserved the issue. The issue would be if the judge excused a juror for a reason that was not sufficiently detailed to show why that juror couldn't continue to be a fair and impartial member of that jury. It is a relatively unusual occurrence to excuse a member of a jury mid-deliberation. And
as you've been saying, we're not going to see her go out in handcuffs today.
No.
And it's going to be quite a while till we hear what the sentencing exactly is.
I think at least 2 to 3 months.
All right, and so right now we did find out from Clark here that there are several counts that she was decidedly not guilty on, according to the jury, but they're not the big counts.
Well, I was wrong about that. I was wrong about it when I said it a moment ago and wrong earlier in the week. I thought that at least on the substantive wire fraud counts, that it was going to be an all or nothing deal. That if they believed Simmons' testimony, that they most likely would believe all of it. But it's apparently that's not the case, because 4 of those counts, 3, 5, 14, and 16, the jury returned a verdict of not guilty on. Some of those did pertain specifically to Simmons. So what that tells me is that this jury did a diligent job of parsing out all of the evidence and reviewing each individual count in detail.
And so we have a very high-profile former U.S. congressman that we have seen in the news here for years and years, and all of us reporters, I've been here now 30 years, have covered numerous press conferences when she was on top of her game, when she spoke in Congress on Capitol Hill, when she gave numerous press conferences, when she was at events, has now fallen. This could be changed on appeal, but now a jury here in Jacksonville in a federal courthouse saying that she is guilty on 18 counts, from wire fraud to scheming to conceal facts to cheating on her taxes. And so, as you can imagine, her supporters decidedly disappointed. Ann Schindler inside the courthouse saying there was a mood of a funeral as she exited out. This video you're seeing right here is not today. This was before, when she was saying she's positive. She felt like she would be definitely found not guilty on these charges, but that is not at all what happened today, Eric.
Right, it certainly is not. Now, she will have another opportunity. She does not have to, but she will have the opportunity to address the sentencing judge, Judge Corrigan, at the time that she is sentenced.
And we were wondering where if Corrine Brown has left the court.